Hello, everyone. It is Thursday, the 25th of January, 2024, and lots to talk about regarding international events, but I'm going to try to keep it isolated to just some admin I want to get out of the way at the beginning, and then I will discuss Canada's future. And there's a lot of people talking about it, and there's a lot of people that are concerned and or care about Canada's future because of our connection in many ways to the U.S., including a physical connection with a landmass, right? And so obviously things that impact Canadians also trickle down to America and vice versa. And so I'm not saying that American government is perfect at all. I don't say that ever. But it's certainly a little bit better than Canada right now. And even so much that Tucker Carlson has come to Canada to liberate us, as he has said, and I'll get into that video. But he was in Alberta, which in Canada, that's our equivalent of our Texas for mentality and stuff like that. I lived in Edmonton for a few years, several years, when I was with the Patricias, and I was also in Gagetown when I was with the Patricias and at JTF2, etc. But like again, I was also in Edmonton, and I friggin' love that area. Such a beautiful, gorgeous country. Like I said, country, but province. They want to separate. That's why I'm saying it. And a lot of people that I know from Alberta call it its own country. And there's some people that are more separatist in Alberta now than Quebec. Fun fact, and I come from Quebec, and so yeah, all walks of life. But they're more the cowboys. Like there's more farmers in Alberta. Like it's where the oil predominantly is being drilled from, and more. And it's by the Rockies as well as BC. Beautiful, beautiful area, and I couldn't say enough good things about it. And even with the like the government at the provincial level in Alberta, they seem to make a little bit more sense than any other friggin' province or territory right now within Canada. And so, of course, Tucker Carlson would go there because very similar to Texas, and North Carolina, Arizona, and and I would say that BC, especially like Vancouver area, Toronto area for Ontario, would be the equivalent of like California, like in the major city areas, or New York City. Anyway, but what I mean by international is that even Russell Brand, who, by the way, Russell Brand, call me in or email me. Let's discuss things as well. So yesterday I had an interview with Mark Sargent, and so I'm classified as an expert based on my career and what I bring to the table with flat Earth and other topics and conspiracies. And so we talked for a few hours yesterday. And so he's 3 hours behind because he's on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast. And so he posted it on his site. I've already looked at a few comments, and so there's so many friggin' trolls, right? It's a little annoying, but it is what it is. And and it doesn't matter what facts people see. They'll just continue to be trolls, not look at the content, just see the title of the video, make stupid comments, leave without even bothering to look at the content, like I've said. And or there's also bots on YouTube as well, which also do automatic replies once certain metadata is put into the algorithms, and it's an automatic response. And so it is what it is. But and that's why we were saying even in the video yesterday that like he doesn't encourage or recommend people using their names unless they're really aware of the consequences of that, and knowing that you really need to have thick skin because people use social media, as a way to hide behind when they're attacking people or threatening or tagging homes or insulting, devaluing as humans. You know what I mean? These are all people that do it under anonymous names, fake handles, and certainly not people that would do that in person. But Russell Brand, he posted yesterday, because I posted 10 hours ago. The Canadian court just ruled that Justin Trudeau's use of the Emergency Act to stop the truckers' protest was illegal. What should happen now? And then he made a list. And so you can see that. All truckers to be released. 2% voted for that. All bank accounts to be unfrozen. 2% voted for that. Trudeau to be jailed. 6% for that. All of the above was 90%. So 90% of people, and there was 123,000 people. That's a lot, especially for Canada. We're at, give or take 38 million roughly, right? Like allegedly 36 to 40 million, let's say. And and that's a lot of votes. Obviously, it's international, but and again, that was yesterday. So now it's probably in the hundreds of thousands, maybe in the millions. I don't know, but and he's from the UK, and very popular in the UK and Europe, but also in the US and a little bit in Canada, and all those votes. And so people are aware internationally of just how ridiculous our leadership is in cabinet at all levels, and the experts that utilized throughout the pandemic and beyond, right? So even with Brenda Lucki and Wayne Eyre and Omar Al-Gabra and Teresa, all these people that people are aware of, like people think that we're ignorant. Even Rebel News was saying, like, I bet you don't know who, like can't name one member of cabinet. And like, why are you saying that to people that are looking at your channel or looking at your news because they're not getting the truth from mainstream media? So it's ignorant that you would assume that people that are looking at your channel, Rebel News, and you get a lot of things wrong as well, by the way, that I call out. And this is no hate. Okay. I've put myself out there for interviews with you as well, and you have ignored it. And so it is what it is. Right. And so, like, that's Canada for you, but I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway. So there, and then Tucker Carlson, I already talked about that, but so the federal government will appeal court decision ruling Emergency Act use unreasonable, illegal, unconstitutional. I've been sharing that since it came out, and that came out on the 23rd, so 2 days ago now. And so with this appeal, I just wanted to also share something that I posted on my Instagram. And by the way, on my Instagram, my handle is DAWNNE. DUSSAULT. So there's 2 N's and an E, and the reason behind that is again just to like change the algorithms up a little bit and to make it harder for trolls to get on my account, right? Because there are a lot of trolls, and so it's people more that are finding my channel or my page on Instagram are people that watch my content, right? So you can't just easily find my Instagram, and you actually have to type it out in full. So that's DAWNNE. DUSSAULT. And so you have on my Instagram several years of me talking about conspiracies and calling things out, like even before the pandemic. And so like that's where you get a lot of proof and content that I've shared this stuff even before my Rumble account and an existing YouTube account, because I'm on account number 3 or 4 for YouTube. I'm on account number 3 for LinkedIn. So many accounts have been deleted on me, and I have multiple strikes even on my YouTube channel that I have now, and it's only like a year and a half old because I'm not as good as other people at staying within like the parameters of the striking system on YouTube. But it's also because I'm in Canada and we are incredibly censored. There are actually bills in place that even for people that want to be independent journalists or speak on social media to further censor us and oppress us, and it's absolutely ridiculous. But anyways, now that it's been deemed that the Emergency Act was considered to be unconstitutional, which is why my ass was out there, in support of the Freedom Convoy in a peaceful way, obviously calling out the crisis actors or the potential roles that were going to be played, and like making sure it wasn't like January 6th where we had leftist or extremists part of the woke crew and government embeds, like Ray Epps and countless other FBI informants and so many others within January 6th. Again, there was real cops and law enforcement that were duped, okay, but there were also crisis actors and people that knew, right? So it was just like a friggin' mess, just like 9/11, just like countless other events. And so unconstitutional, and so we should not have to pay for their appeal. Okay, so this is like Chrystia Freeland, Justin Trudeau, people that actually enacted the Emergency Act. And by the way, myself, like I have the receipts to prove this. I sent emails even prior to this being announced, even before the voting even happened, emailing cabinet saying that like they should be voting no on this Emergency Act because it's like illegal, unethical, all these things. And so I can happily share those read receipts, and I have for countless other emails that I've sent out even regarding COVID. And anyway. And so they're going to be using the taxpayers' money. So this is what I mean. Like Chrystia Freeland, like she's the deputy prime minister and she's the finance minister, and she has been for years. And she is terrible at her job. And people from the U.S., by the way, I don't know why I'm pointing to the U.S. but anyway, in Washington D.C. Anyway, Seattle area, she's well known on the West Coast in the U.S. for being ignorant, for being an imbecile. That term has been used countless times. Like that's not me using it. I'm not saying it. I'm not making that up. That's been said on the record, and not a good reputation, and also seen as unpleasant. And so that's her reputation in the U.S., right? Like, do we know about that? And that's in the political community. Like Washington D.C. is literally like the hub of the U.S. government, you know, and so even that, right? She's a joke, and she's not taken seriously. And so this is why, like, that in itself, she should be fired from her job. And she's also financially crippled us, right? Like, our economy has almost like friggin' collapsed. We're in a, you know, in a friggin' recession, like whatever you want to friggin' call it, and it's directly because of her. And people think that this takes time to happen. No, it could take like a year, right? Especially if left unchecked. And so if she wants to appeal, like the court's decision at the highest level, saying that it was unconstitutional and illegal, okay, then you shouldn't be appealing it with our money. Okay, taxpayers, okay, who literally like showed up at the Freedom Convoy, who you painted as criminals or persons of interest because you couldn't find any proof of them doing anything criminal. Okay, myself included, on lists going to financial banking institutions because I supported the Freedom Convoy and I was calling out the crisis actors and the government embeds. And again, it was to make sure that we didn't get a riot situation like January 6th they were trying there, clearly. Right? I'm a friggin' patriot for Canada. I'm a friggin' veteran. I'm a business owner, you know, that works with the Five Eyes community, international security. And so why would I not do that, right? Like, and first of all, it would be expected. It should be expected, you know, of me to be out there to at least make it as peaceful as possible and call this stuff out if I have that information. And I had videos deleted on me during that period as well. And Helen Bruce was also during that period. She's Ottawa Police Services. She has over 20 years in working with sexual assault, child abuse with that department that was kilometers away from my house that I had to flee within the last year, trying to for over 2 years. But she was getting medical, scientific, government data about these therapeutics and the mandates and about all of this stuff. And she was charged, suspended, vilified in the courts. It's been years now. And it keeps on getting extended, right? Because they're trying to go after her pension. She has a family. She's over 100,000 and she's like middle class, but a law enforcement over 20 years working her ass off with a family, so many sacrifices, and not just with Ottawa Police Services, but higher level contracts, because I've hired her for higher level contracts because she was an expert. Okay. And she was used in an expert role to train the higher levels of government for people that respond to natural and man-made disasters internationally and locally. And so incredible at her job, and a literal expert, and she's still in the courts. And her lawyer, she couldn't find anyone in Ontario, just like I couldn't either. And I'm looking for a lawyer for several different things, go against the friggin' government and the media and certain universities. Anyway, and cabinet members in a legal way, but like, she's having to pay all of this money out of her own pocket, right? And that should be government funded, because she's a friggin' hero, and she wasn't getting any foil hack conspiracy theories that couldn't be proven. Like, she was giving none of that. I'll reiterate, she was giving medical data, scientific data, and government data, official, on the record. And this was things that were dismissed. And it's unfortunate. Jeremy McKenzie went to jail, and again, thousands of dollars, you know, in legal fees, and still ongoing. So probably hundreds of thousands. I don't even know. That's disgusting to me. Again, another hero, a veteran. Okay, that had the. Then it's showing now that it was illegal, unconstitutional, all of this stuff, and you'll see how even CSIS was painting them in the RCMP. So again, when the Emergency Act was declared, people that were innocent civilians, innocent people all over Canada were deemed to be persons of interest, like I said, and that put them in a possible bubble with terrorists or with criminals. And so they took innocent people, if they donated to the convoy, if they posted social media posts that were in support of the convoy, anything like that, you had the risk of having your bank account frozen, of being on a friggin' watch list, of having your house tapped. Like, disgusting overreach, and again, by people that are the actual Nazis. And that's the irony in this as well. Like Chrystia Freeland, for her and her family coming from Ukraine, which a majority of the crimes against humanity were committed in Europe during World War II, by the way. Not so much in Germany as in Hungary. Well, I mean, as in Poland, first of all, if you want to go first on the list. Poland, friggin' Austria, Hungary, Ukraine, those areas, the most crimes against Jews, people of color, and people that were living in poverty and in adverse health conditions. This is where the majority of the crimes against humanity were committed. Okay, and so again, these were Poles, these were Austrians, these were Ukrainians. Anyway, And then again, like, what does she do? She illegally, unconstitutionally enacts emergency acts. Again, the World War I, World War II, because this used to be the War Measures Act. They're just calling this that now, to oppress innocent civilians and deem them as domestic terrorists and all that stuff. And like even saying things, this guy, like literally I saw signs that gas the unvaccinated. And it was like, it's horrendous. It's horrifying. And I'm going on all these freaking tangents, but like, we shouldn't be paying for it, right? You know, like we're already paying out of pocket. Like I've also had to pay thousands of dollars, and I'll get into that at some point, but not yet. The Coots brothers, they're still in jail. There's been no bail here, like none of that stuff. No, well, they just got denied bail. Like finally had a bail hearing just literally within the last month, like in the last couple of weeks, and denied by probably some woke leftist psychopath friggin' judge. Okay, because yes, there are a few of those that are hand selected to preside over these cases. Even Justin Trudeau during the Emergency Act hearings, he handpicked people that were within his family network since he was born, literally on the record saying that the guy that he chose babysat him, and he used to like visit, like he and his family used to visit him at their friggin' cottages in the summers and all this other stuff. So like raised with their kids, like you know, conflict of interest. So they should be fired, is what I'm saying, and they should be jailed for treason, or at least investigated for treason. And anyone that supported it, just know that you were on the wrong side of history, and there's no judgment there. But you need to do better, right? If you want to talk about what went on in Europe and condemn groups and organizations, now you can understand that you were actually just like them. And you know it. And so you just got to fix it. Yeah, I gotta. Canada's gone deep into the totalitarian state. International. In Canada, we don't even get news. We don't even get Canadian news in Canada. And out in other countries, people are messaging me, reaching out. Like I'm getting people from Spain, from South Africa, from multiple people from the US, from Brazil, from Mexico. They're like, what the hell is going on with Canada? Shocked at the videos they're seeing, at the footage of our law enforcement, of our government. Like people are shocked. People in like what we're calling third world countries are like, holy shit, like, do you need to leave? Are you okay? Like, like Canada's fucked. And it's and we used to be number one, right? And we can easily get back to it, but you know, people need to be fired already and investigated. Yeah, Tamara Leash as well. Like, she's a grandmother. She's still in the friggin' courts, and she was in jail because of the freedom convoy, and it was peaceful. Again, like emergency act being declared unjustified, unconstitutional. She's a friggin' hero. And so Christy needs to be fired and investigated. Why hasn't this happened yet? And then I plug my channel, and I share countless lies she spread and destruction. Anyways, should they be using our taxpayers to appeal the decision made by a very intelligent, incredibly courageous, incredibly ethical and brave judge? Should they be appealing that decision? Absolutely not. Not with our money. They're rich off of our friggin' backs. So again, you're making people that have like 1/10 of your salary, okay, and 1/100th of your wealth. I'm talking about the generational wealth as well. And you are stealing from them for speaking out on your exploitation of our country, which is what they're hired to protect and defend against. Make it make sense to me. Anyways, I'm going on all these friggin' tangents. Clyde Do Something, he's Canadian. And he's pretty good. I like his videos. I wish he would also get me on his show so that within Canada as well, like we can get like a bigger network going in the truther community or independent journalists, whatever you want to call it. So here is him talking about
Tucker Carlson's coming to
Tucker
Canada.
This was posted a day ago, so he's here now, and I'm not sure he'll come to Ottawa. But if he does, he and his wife and family, they're welcome to stay at my place, free of charge. Obviously, like anyone that's a friggin' courageous, brave person that's like coming to Canada on behalf of Canadians and Americans to make this a better friggin' place, and then deal with all the friggin' trolls and harassment and the threats to life. And the fact that he probably has to have a huge security detail just to even be able to friggin' walk to and from venues. But anyway, he's great.
I'm going to be flying out to see him, and well, he's already hitting some roadblocks. Tucker Carlson, of course, the American famous commentator of politics and news. He's now on X, that's owned by Elon Musk, formerly known as Twitter. And well, he's formerly known as a Fox commentator. Well, he was there before. Apparently, they had a disagreement with management over some of the narratives they were supposed to continue to flaunt. I think Tucker Carlson, he decided to go along the lines of what is it? We call it truth. That's right. The truth based on the facts that are at play and information that we have to our disposal. Now he's hitting roadblocks already. We're going to get into this, but as well, on top of this, I will be there if you're in the Calgary area. Myself, Marty up north, a bunch of other people. We're going to be getting together, doing a meetup after the show. So check the communities tab. I'll leave a link in the top of the description where you can find out when and where that's happening. But Tucker Carlson posting this on his Instagram today. Keith Wilson sharing this out on Twitter. And well, let's just play this.
Thank you for your call. You've reached the media line. For all urgent requests, please send your request by email. Merci pour votre appel. Vous avez obtenu la ligne médiatique. Merci beaucoup.
Yes, hi. I couldn't understand the French part, but it's Tucker Carlson calling from the United States. And I'd be grateful if you pass a message on to the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. We are coming to liberate Canada. We are coming to liberate Canada. And we'll be there soon. Merci.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to this event. Now, he's doing two events. One's going to be in Calgary and one's going to be in Edmonton. Check your local Ticketmaster and see if anything's available if you are in the area and you want to attend this event, or if any tickets are even still available. Now, the plot thickens. Here we have Jordan Peterson retweeting this one out there and saying, "See you there, Tucker Carlson." Danielle Smith and Conrad Black. Of course, the planned event in the Calgary event was to have Tucker speaking with Danielle Smith, the, of course, premier of Alberta herself. And this, I mean, that enough is a draw. It was a draw enough to have me fly out and attend this event. But it looks like it's going to be even more interesting. It's getting more interesting as the hours develop. But of course, there's that opposition. Now, there's this opposition, of course, change.org petition to urge Rogers Place in Edmonton to cancel the Tucker Carlson show. Now, of course, 17,000 people from around the globe have said that Calgary or Edmonton shouldn't have this event. But as concerned citizens, this writes, Alberta from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and organizers of Pride Corner and on White, spelled with a Y, an organization dedicated to the safety of 2S LGBTQ individuals from religious hate speech. We are deeply disturbed by the decision of Rogers Place to host Tucker Carlson show on January 24th, 2024. Now, this is obviously a ploy to get them to cancel the event because nothing works better for the opposition of people who want to seek the truth is to hide that truth and not allow anybody to speak. This is generally the way it's been going as of late. But usually the totalitarians, people who want to usurp control over everyone else, are the ones who want to shut down speech. Now, my idea, if ideas are bad, if somebody has bad ideas, nothing is a better disinfectant than sunshine. Let's have those ideas out in the open. And I would probably invite people who arrange this petition to actually attend such an event and have your voice heard. Come on out and speak your mind and see what everybody thinks about your ideas. Now, if you read down, Tucker Carlson this is their description of him. Tucker Carlson is an American right-wing ex-Fox News anchor who has been widely criticized for his racist, homophobic, and sexist remarks. It just comes out like babble. It comes out from the gallbladder and right out the jowls. This kind of rhetoric. It's funny to listen to because not a lot of it is grounded in reality. Now, Tucker Carlson is well known for inviting people who disagree with him onto his show to express their point of view, and he challenges their ideas, and he allows other people to challenge his ideas. And this, I think, is why largely he was exited from his position, and now he's got a comfy home on what a lot of people are dubbing the only free speech platform out there, X. But now he's coming to Canada, which is well, you might have a hard time with the whole free speech thing because we don't exactly have a First Amendment here in Canada. It's a little bit different. Now, they leave a couple of articles, of course, all of these, none of them, when you want to read some of the articles detailing Carlson, quotes by Carlson, please visit these things. I mean, you could just go right to the source. Now, here's one quote from Tucker Carlson. No group in Canadian history has done a worse job running this country than the neoliberals currently in charge. They're vicious, they're intolerant, and they're utterly corrupt.
Right.
But above all else, they're incompetent. And in fact, that might be our saving grace in Canada, is just the fact that they are so incompetent. It really is a situation where that might be the only thing that will stop them from going forward with their plans, because nothing is worse than diabolical with a wherewithal to actually get a plan accomplished, put together, and executed. So let's be all thankful that they're so utterly incompetent, and thank you, Tucker, for pointing that out. Now, Tucker was famous for saying this, where this was on his show, where he started off by saying it in jest, and then it became kind of a surreal moment where he was actually kind of serious about it.
Why should we stand back and let our biggest trading partner, the country with which we have the longest border, and actually, I could just say a great country. I love Canada. I've always loved Canada because of its natural beauty. Why should we let it become Cuba? Like, why don't we liberate it? We're spending all this money to liberate Ukraine from the Russians. Why are we not sending an armed force north to liberate Canada from Trudeau? And I mean it. Why should we?
And he sounds like he did mean it, actually. Again, it sounded like he was in jest saying this at first, but then it really came down to it. What is with this nation building and pushing for regime changes across the world, when right here at home, right next door to the United States, there is a regime that is extremely detrimental. Thank you so much. To freedom.
Rob for Freedom 2012.
To what's happening really nice. In the Western world. And it would be absolutely in the interest of America to not invade. I wouldn't say invade, but perhaps give a little bit more influence in the direction of
he doesn't mean
perhaps invade. Moving towards more freedom instead of
violently.
the direction that the liberal government has been going. And we all know the answer to what the liberals are pushing forward.
They're not liberal.
How serious could this actually be? And it could get really serious.
So in defense of liberals, like people that are actually not crazy, okay, because it's only a small percentage of liberals that are crazy and or doing really irresponsible things, right? Like, and I've named them. So Marco Menincino, Chrystia Freeland, Justin Trudeau, these people, Bill Blair, they are incredibly incompetent, right? And so these are not liberals. These are people that are extremists, they're lobbyists, they're opportunists that are working in and around the same circles that have their own agenda, and it has nothing to do with Canada or Canadians, or like nothing to do with us, okay? And in fact, they don't even care that it harms us clearly in countless ways. Physically, mentally, spiritually. It's frustrating, but so even within within Canada, people like, I'm not slamming Canada. I love Canada too. Like, that's why I haven't left. I haven't fled like so many other people that I know. Okay. That saw the writing on the friggin' wall and left Canada before it got to the state, right? Like, I stayed. Okay. For everything. I have friggin' held the line, even knowing that I could possibly even be suicided, you know what I mean? At the extreme levels, which again, anyway, it is what it is. But I don't hate Canadians, right? I'm frustrated and really annoyed that Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau and these people are still, and Patty Hajdu and Barry Etches, that these people, okay, that are still in positions that, you know, where they're allowed to impact and influence our lives like they do. Because clearly over years I have called out, and it's exhausting, okay, all of the stuff that they're doing against us, you know, whether it's again designed that way or intentional or not, I don't care. That the fact is, you know, you have to look at actions and outcomes, and not words, but certainly pay attention to words. And so, like, even with when I'm slamming Biden, right, or even Trump for that matter, right? Like, I'm not, like, it's not a hate on to Americans at all, right? Like, I'm slamming these people because of things that they're doing and saying that are causing a lot of harm and duress to a lot of innocent civilians, more vulnerable people, right? And there's so many better people in the U.S., you know, that could be in cabinet, right? But for decades, like, these people are just clinging to these friggin' positions and just changing it around, okay, and not allowing there to be people in there that are not corrupted, okay, not doing these weird, creepy friggin' orgies and like whatever else they're friggin' doing. I'm not judging this stuff, but like, can you just focus on the country right now, okay? Because like we're imploding, okay, and it's because of you. It's your friggin' fault. And trying to blame truckers, trying to blame friggin' frontline nurse, like try to blame people that are actually trying to be good, decent human beings and getting yeah, it just blows my mind. And so slamming people or elected officials within government does not mean that's slamming the entire country. And I just wanted to reiterate that, or even the political party. And there are liberal MPs, which means member of parliament within Canada, like even within Newfoundland, a member of parliament that's liberal. He's even saying that Justin Trudeau needs to step down. Okay, so like even within the party, there are people saying step down, and he's not. Because did Adolf Hitler? No. Did Stalin? Did Lenin? Like,
if it graduates even further. But I want to leave that one there with you. Now, of course, this is that petition that's been going on. I'll leave a link in the description down below, where you can go comment on these threads and go give your 2 cents about this kind of stuff. Marty up north pointing out this person who's sharing this on Twitter, purposefully seeking win-wins. How? By silencing those with different opinions, by canceling people you don't like. You're a hypocrite, Jenny. And he's I couldn't agree anymore. Anyway, I'll leave the links for all of this in the description down below. But hey, let you know that there's going to be a little bit of a strange upload schedule during the next couple of days, because I will be flying out to Calgary. I will be attending.
So he's just talking about his trip, his travels. Let's see what else he's got here.
Breaking news, Justin Trudeau's use of the Emergencies Act to crush the Freedom Convoy protest was just deemed illegal by a federal court judge. Federal government decision to invoke the Emergencies Act in 2022 was unreasonable, a federal court rules. Now let's go.
You know what? It kind of annoys me, Mariette Walsh, that you're softening this, okay? You were calling unvaccinated people names, okay, and trying to push a white supremacist friggin' narrative too at the beginning, and now you're saying unreasonable? No, unconstitutional, illegal. Let's call it what it is. Come on.
Go back 1 year into the Public Order Emergency Commission, the POEC, or the Emergencies Act inquiry, and this was put together. It was mostly a show trial.
And Rouleau, a friend, like a family friend for generations,
that had no teeth, but it was put together with Justice Paul Rouleau at the head of this thing. And, well, of course, handpicked by Justin Trudeau, a member of the Trudeau Foundation, found that Trudeau was justified. And these are the reasons that he gave. I wrote this a year ago. Justice Paul Rouleau justified the use of the Emergencies Act, not because the Freedom Convoy was a threat, but because the government failed in their duties at all levels. Government incompetence is now the threshold to suspend civil liberties in Canada. Now, that was the case a year ago. Moving forward, it doesn't look so much the case. But at the time, yes, of course, Justice Paul Rouleau had this to say.
In fact, I sometimes think I'm no more than a puppet with a lot of puppeteers behind who are making the whole system work.
And like, how old is he? And has he been, was he cleared fit, medically fit to even do that?
I deserve virtually no credit for all that's happened to date.
Oh no, you'll be given the credit for being the puppet, of course. But yeah, Commissioner Rouleau, in a use of an analogy at the end of the Emergencies Act inquiry, refers to himself as a puppet. Canadians across the country have been suspecting this for over a month as this was going on. Now,
and that was during the emergency hearings, the Emergency Act hearings, rather. And people didn't even watch it in Canada, which frustrates me. Like, people that are slamming people and calling for their friggin' banishment or death and stuff like that, vilifying people. They don't bother to actually do any research, right? It's just being committed to a friggin' narrative and not wanting to look at anything at all. And so the Emergency Act hearings were a few weeks long, okay? Long friggin' days. Frustrating to listen to these people lie on the stand, including Chrystia Freeland, Marco Menachino, and Justin Trudeau. Okay, and there was actually people like Jeremy McKenzie, who from friggin' prison spoke at the hearings as well and offered his piece and stuff like that. And again, like someone that is a literal hero in my humble opinion, James Topp as well, who did the march, across Canada. To bring awareness to this, right, and show his support to the Freedom Convoy, a friggin' hero, and charged by Wayne Eyre, the biggest friggin' coward muppet in the Canadian Armed Forces, and just so happens to be the Chief of Defense Staff, who I also shared multiple documents to, like the VARs that were being submitted, all that stuff, and yeah, people didn't watch it. And they have the biggest opinions. People that do the least amount of research have the biggest opinions, I feel.
Forward to today, breaking news. Federal court judge ruled that the use of the Emergencies Act was unreasonable and therefore illegal in its sense. Now, in the decision, it is declared that the decision to issue the proclamation and the associated regulations and order was unreasonable and ultra vires the Emergencies Act. Also, at this point, it is declared that the regulations infringe Section 2B of the Charter, that would be the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada, and declared that the order infringed on Section 8 of the Charter, and neither infringement was justified under Section 1. Now, Section 1 of the Emergencies Act would be the justification for it. There has to be absolutely no other means in order for them to take care of a situation, and they have to have exhausted all of that. Well, they didn't demonstrate this. It wasn't possible that they had demonstrated this, and obviously the judge listened to all the arguments in this case and declared that no, it was not justified. And this is how obviously the POEC or the inquiry should have gone, because it was logical from all aspects that government failing in their duties isn't justification for declaring a state of emergency and suspending all civil liberties. This is nationwide in Canada, mind you. And of course, the freezing of bank accounts, which is really like Soviet level kind of response.
And I will reiterate, freezing bank accounts or financial institutions getting access to lists of people that are not criminals at all, but under the Emergency Act, considered persons of interest, like delegated persons of interest type thing, and were put on a list for the discretion of the financial institutions to do what they want with the fucking list. Okay, lists throughout history. Okay, Schindler's List, fucking Epstein's list, like we don't let's not do the lists. Okay, because even financial crimes are crimes, right? And financial strikes are actually still considered to be military strikes. It's one of the first things people do, right? Or militaries do, or governments do, is they strike their targets financially, spiritually, emotionally, financially. Again, you go up the levels, right? I'm going to present, actually, I'll keep this going first. I'll just show you some of the documents.
To dissent in the nation's capital, to a protest, mind you, a protest. Now, the emergency proclamation
Justice
was not just
Richard Mosley is a friggin', I'm super impressed with this guy. I hope that he does interviews and who knows, but he's the one that made the decision, the ruling about the Freedom Convoy and the Emergency Act Declaration.
Justified in relation to the relevant factual and legal constraints that were required to be taken into consideration. Justice Richard Mosley wrote in his decision. The decision to use the proclamation was unreasonable and led to the infringement of charter rights not justified under Section 1, the justice wrote. The Canadian Civil Liberties Association filed an application for judicial review against the government's use of the Emergencies Act, as did several other groups and individuals. The federal court found that the decisions to declare the Emergencies Act was ultra vires and unreasonable, and the measures violated the charter. And the Canadian Civil Liberties Association lawyer Ewa Kardziewska said in a brief statement on social media. Now, this is a decision. I want to jump in and say all the things that I'd love to say about this, but there is constraints here. As a public figure here, and I'm not a legal expert, I don't want to give any sort of legal opinion on this. So I'm gonna, bide my time here, get more information from legal experts, and that's probably the best case scenario to go forward. Now, breaking, Pierre Poilievre put this on Twitter. The judge rules that Trudeau broke the highest law in his land with the Emergencies Act. He caused the crisis by dividing people, then violated charter rights to illegally suppress citizens. As PM, I will unite the country for freedom. Let's hope he's actually telling the truth in that.
I don't know if it's him or his staff, but his social media in the last week especially has been solid, on point with a lot of things, even condemning or on the table about WEF, like no involvement with the World Health Organization, WEF, these specific organizations as well, and just carbon tax stuff, calling out. And again, is this catering to a demographic, and possibly gonna go back on promises like a lot of politicians do, maybe, right? I've shared countless videos of politicians all over the friggin' world saying one thing, and then 2 years later saying the complete opposite, right? Even friggin' Nikki Haley, I've just recently shared multiple times where she's gone back and forth on friggin' big views or big opinions, topics, and Biden and Hillary Clinton, and you friggin' name it. But will he do the same? I'm hoping not.
So he's going to be the next prime minister, of course, showing the True North article.
And Maxime Bernier also has gotten most things right, more so than any other political party or political party leader, right? Maxime is head of the PPC. I don't know if he still is, but he was, and he's the one that from the very beginning, even with the pandemic, was on the right side of history, and with indigenous, even with assisting them with ways that they can have like better living conditions, right? So like I've just been like I the interviews with Mark Sargent and stuff like that, and like emailing other people. Like I emailed Dave Weiss this morning to do another interview, like to set up one. And so my brain is a little bit foggy this morning. Anyways, I don't even know what I was talking about, but anyway, Maxime Bernier, he got pretty much everything right so far, where a lot of the political parties got wrong at the beginning and have since changed their position, which is a good thing. But, you know, can you trust them for future events to make the right decisions if they've even recently within the last 4 years made incorrect decisions early on? You know, so if that's the case, then Pierre, you got to hire me as like your key like security analyst or advisor, whatever you want to call it. And we can sit down and friggin' talk for friggin' however long it friggin' takes. and I'll clarify anything that needs to be clarified. So that's also, or even with the liberal parties, like again, even if Justin Trudeau or Chrystia Freeland legitimately wanted to have a conversation and go like a meeting or something like that together, closed door, obviously, like I've made myself available for that as well. And they're not willing to talk to anyone. Like the egos on them is enough. Like they, anyway.
Federal court declares Trudeau's use of the Emergencies Act unconstitutional. Yes, this would be the highest court in our land. Now, Chrystia Freeland, of course, getting right to the media and telling them that, yeah, we're gonna challenge this one more time. You know, they want us to respect the courts, of course, until the courts rule against them.
So we are aware of the court decision. We have discussed it with the Prime Minister, with cabinet colleagues, with senior federal government officials and experts. We respect very much Canada's independent judiciary. However,
why did you got to talk like that?
We do not agree with this decision, and respectfully, we will be appealing.
Why is she talking like that?
I would just like to take a moment to remind Canadians of how serious the situation was in our country.
I would like to just remind all Canadians how serious the declaration of the Emergencies Act is. This is the suspension of civil liberties across the entire nation. And this is coast to coast. Suspending our Charter of Rights and Freedoms and putting in new regulations so that they could freeze people's assets that disagreed with them politically. Of course, in the POAC, a lot of information came to light about the fact that they wanted to declare the state of emergency ahead of time. This was actually in the talks from the time that the truckers had left British Columbia in the POAC and the inquiry into the use of the Emergencies Act. This all came to light. So what she says next, take what she says with a grain of salt here.
We took that decision. The public safety of Canadians was under threat. Our national security, which includes our national economic security, was under
economic security. They closed down. They forced businesses to close down and be locked down during all this. And any business, even in the Ottawa area during the lockdowns that wanted to be open, they had the friggin' Gestapo friggin' show up with the friggin' charges and the threats and the friggin' like lady crazy. And like even my own personal account, okay, she has screwed over all of my work contracts at the federal level and international level, where I needed to travel also as part of my job, okay, got turned around on my way to Australia, and I was booked for Iceland for various different reasons to do my own research and stuff like that and investigations on things. So, and then contracts delayed because of the in-person lockdown stuff, you know what I mean? And then canceled because I was saying that this is something that was planned, you know, and the therapeutics possibly being not as effective as we were being led to believe. And all this stuff, and so like lost multi-million-dollar contracts, right? And and even now, on standby, right? And so like if there's any friggin' Americans that want me to teach hostile environment awareness training and or standing rapid deployment team courses to your higher levels of government, I have taught these courses before. I have references. It's a multi-day package, and there's a theoretical and practical portion in these, and it's utilizing multiple different facilities and role players and facilitators throughout, and it's the best course you'll ever friggin' get, in my humble opinion. This is what I've been told by many people, and it's just a shame that they people are shutting me out, because I get it. Your name is Global Affairs Canada. Global Affairs, you know what I mean? But like, you know, just like all you have to do is change the name back to DFAT-D or whatever it was before that, like DFAT as well, right? Like different names throughout history, and let's go from there. I'm rambling.
It was a hard decision to take. We took it very seriously.
There were people within the Liberal government that hired role players and crisis actors, and they had in beds. They hired plants within government to be part of it as well. Brian Fox and multiple other people that are Liberals and donate to the Liberal Party, they tried to incite a riot. Even that first weekend, that's what they wanted. The whole plan was, and even Justin Trudeau's Monday speech from the first weekend, like it was all about right-wing extremists and stuff like that. Like, even though we called out the fact that the person that was holding the flag was Brian Fox, the person sharing the photo up was Justin Trudeau's photographer, and that this guy was walking through and in and around Parliament with protection by friggin' RCMP, a handful of RCMP and Ottawa Police Services and Parliamentary Protective Services, and all staged and planned by leftists, liberals, right? And then claiming it was friggin' people that were like that voted conservative. Like, this is what I mean. It was like so friggin' disgusting to me. And they did the same thing with January 6th. And I was saying this, like I'm like, January 6th was just like a year ago, guys, like a little over a year ago, and like didn't want to hear it. Everyone, like, first of all, people, you know, during that time, the Freedom Convoy, they legitimately thought that January 6th was like worse than 9/11. Like they literally thought that that multiple people were slaughtered on January 6th, and that you know, there was like this huge friggin' coup and takeover, and it was massive, like amounts of like MAGA, like right-wing extremists that just friggin' like were like, I don't know, tearing through friggin' the not even remotely true, and people like myself have proven this countless times, like on my accounts, like on the record, on social media. And so look at Dawn 189 on Rumble, DAWN 189 on Rumble, and you'll see a lot more videos that don't get taken down, like on friggin' YouTube and other areas. These Muppets, man.
After a lot of hard work, after a lot of careful deliberation, we were convinced at the time, I was convinced at the time, it was the right thing to do. It was the necessary thing to do. I remain, and we remain, convinced of that. And I'll now turn it over to my colleague, the Minister of Justice, and we'll hear from my colleague, the Minister of Public Safety.
Well, she's obviously lying there and saying that she was convinced after long deliberation. Again, the POC did bring to light the fact that they were talking about this right from the get-go. But at the time, they were actually lying to the public and telling the public that this was the recommendation of police agencies at all levels. That again turned out to be an absolute fabrication. No police force, no CSIS, the RCMP, or local level police or provincial level police at all asked for this to be declared, even though this was their statement at the time. Now, moving forward, here's her colleague.
Yeah, so they were giving lists and stuff like that, and they were targeting specific people that were actually not criminals at all, and they were given more powers during the Emergency Act declaration. But they at all levels, they weren't recommending for that to be called, right? So like they didn't get to that point. And I'll reiterate, like people even like Helen Bruce, but law enforcement I can't mention in various capacities are also like silent heroes that you'll never hear about, and people I can't name, but that were also making this as peaceful as friggin' possible and really trying to make this again like taper tempers at all levels, like Green Bank station at friggin' Huntmar, like downtown, like stations, and with the parliamentary protective, like with different people in involvement, people were trying to calm people down even from within internally, and trying to share information with them that they were not getting, right? So a lot of cops were getting, again, like the same misinformation that you were getting from the mainstream media. And even Peter Slowly, he was the chief of police for Ottawa Police Services at the time. He even admitted that he gets his friggin' updates and his news from the friggin' media, right? And then he even said it, like, oh, I found out that the Freedom Convoy was coming here from the media. Well, really, because I emailed you and tagged you a week before it came, and all levels of the friggin' government. And so special forces, parliamentary protective services, my friends that were, part of the infantry battalion that was like staged and ready to assist downtown if things regressed or whatever you want to call it, and multiple other people, like giving them the content, giving them information, showing them the crisis actors like Brian Fox and these other fucking idiots, and then sharing the proof that the arson was not committed by by right-wing extremists. I was sharing all of this information, and people were looking at it and trying to share this information too, right? And so this could have gotten a lot more violent, absolutely. And it's honestly because of friggin' people that just so happen to be leftists. Wrap your head around that. Yeah, so the arson was committed by leftists and people that were apparently like part of like Antifa groups, nowhere, not at all involved with the Freedom Convoy. Lied about them taking food and ostracizing homeless. That was not true at all. In fact, they were giving money and a lot of friggin' food and barbecuing friggin' like meats, you know what I mean, and giving it to the homeless people. They were cleaning up the roads. It was incredibly peaceful, and people were lied about. And again, these like crisis actors exploiting monuments in order to elicit emotional responses in people and claiming to be other people, pretending to be veterans, these fucking douche canoes, right? That haven't even done like a week of boot camp in their friggin' lives, pretending to be friggin' war heroes, right? Stolen valor. Like, stop doing that.
Coming forward and saying his piece about this.
In other respects, it finds it was not. Upon reviewing that decision, we obviously reiterate the respect for the judicial process that Minister Freeland has just mentioned, but a fundamental aspect of the judicial process is also proceeding on an appeal. And after that consultation with the Prime Minister, with cabinet colleagues, we've taken the decision that we will be proceeding on an appeal, as is within our rights within the judicial system.
Yeah, well, good luck with that.
And not with our money.
That's really where you stand on
money.
this. Now, people on Twitter pointing things out. Here's Mike on Twitter saying, if I were one of those poor folks who had their accounts frozen, I would be calling a civil lawyer today. Absolutely. Now, I'll leave in the description down below a link to the decision. You can rifle through this. There's all kinds of great information that can come out because of it, but I would recommend go do that. Go read it for yourself. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't give legal advice or anything like this, but I would love to bring lawyers on to the channel to give advice or at least more of an educated opinion about all of this. And of course, I look to the Canadian Constitution Foundation, the people who were actually fighting in this case, well, some of the people in the parties fighting for this were them, and Christine Van Geyn is a great source of information. You can check her out on YouTube as well under the Canadian Constitution Foundation. Always updates going up on there. But she says here, when the whole idea of Freeland saying that the feds will be appealing the court ruling, she says, bring it on. Freeland, the feds will be appealing a court ruling. Chrystia Freeland says that the federal government will appeal a court's ruling that the use of the Emergencies Act was unreasonable. Well, it absolutely was unreasonable. And I assume that the courts, because they're not in Trudeau's back pocket, just like Paul Rouleau or some of these other ones, David Johnson with the Chinese Interference Commission, all of this stuff. This is more of a real court. This is a lot less of the kangaroo courts that they've been bringing forward to us here in
Canada. And they think we're
so
dumb. Like, that's the thing that frustrates me even more. Like, they think that people, like the majority of Canadians, don't know this. They really do. Like, and even at the UFC fight that happened in Toronto, he was there with one of his kids, and the whole crowd was screaming, was chanting F Trudeau, F Trudeau, like the whole friggin' are you not aware? And even like they're not aware of how awful they are at their jobs. at their jobs, obviously. But so I'm going to share some of the court documents for people. I'll go from left to right. So this is from the 23rd when this was released and announced. So Ottawa, Ontario, January 23rd, 2024. The Honorable Mr. Friggin' Awesome, sorry, Mr. Justice Mosley, and Frigman, oh my God. Oh. Between Canadian Frontline Nurses and Christian Nagel and the Attorney General of Canada, and between Canadian Civil Liberties Association, Attorney General of Canada, Canadian Constitution Foundation, Attorney General of Canada. Anyway, so these are the applicants. Jeremiah Jost, Edward Cornell, Vincent Gertzi, and Harold Bristow. I've shared this before, but I'm just going through it again because I didn't go over it very fast. It was very fast. So for the intro, these are reasons for judgment in 4 applications for judicial review under sections 18 and 18.1 of the Federal Courts Act, RSC, 1985. To declare a public order emergency and to approve additional measures in order to end disruptive protests in Ottawa and other locations in Canada. So challenging the order. The Attorney General of Alberta responded to a notice of constitutional question in one of the applications and also sought and obtained leave to intervene to make some submissions on several non-constitutional questions. The Attorney General of Canada brought motions to strike the applications on the grounds that they were moot and that most of the applicants left standing. Again, this is BS. And even Brian Peckford, and Maxime Bernier tried to take the federal, the federal government to court, and they delayed the trials and the hearings. And then they did it when when lockdowns and mandates were not in effect. Okay, just on pause, on hold. Okay, so they're not off the table for the future, right? And because it was during that time, they deemed it moot. All right, this is what I mean. They are literally blocking people that have been of service to Canada for literally decades and within their families for generations. And these men are being cast aside and character assassinated and economically just attempted to be destroyed, penalized because of being further being of service to Canada, right? Our top people are getting the worst treatment right now, unfortunately, by the worst of the worst, when it comes to competence, unfortunately. And so so they're still trying to go to push this back in the courts, but it's obviously very challenging. And so I hope that they do get that chance again. I believe that they do have another hearing or another court thing this year. I think it might be in March. And I'm really hoping that because of this case, that is something that is taken more seriously or taken seriously at all. So just talking more about neither Ms. Nagel nor the CFN were identified by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to financial service providers as an individual or entity to whom the regulations and the economic order applied. Their bank accounts and their resources were not frozen. However, Ms. Nagel averred that donations to the CFN diminished as a result of the proclamation and imposition of the regulations and the economic order. As a result, she and her family chose to leave Ottawa. So a lot of people had to flee. And I had to flee my home, being close to Hunt Mile, one of the friggin' worst friggin'. Oh, anyway. March 14th. So many things were just being pushed out of the courts. So this is the document. It's on Clyde Do Something's video that I just shared. So I also want to share from Ethos and Eris. This is an access to information from a request that he submitted for CSIS and what they were going off, I guess, for their deeming people to be criminals. And so this is from CSIS. And again, this is an access to information, 64 pages long. So Canada, extremists may attempt to seize the opportunity of public protest. This was January 27th, 2022, a couple months before. Background on protest convoy. And so even with this, like, how did you not know the convoy was coming when even January of 2022 you knew about it and I knew about it? I was freaking sharing it too. A convoy of Canadian truck drivers and their supporters are traveling from various cities to Ottawa to protest oh no, sorry, I'm thinking of friggin' other things. No, January was definitely when this started, because like, again, this is the 28th and 29th, that weekend that I was out. Like, I met up with the convoy, I drove friggin' like downtown, I friggin' did all that stuff, I was giving food, and again, like talking to Bloc Party people and law enforcement and security details of varying degrees, trying to make this friggin' peaceful and not like January 6th. And was I freezing my ass off? Yes, I was. Yes, I was. You know what I mean? But like, what am I supposed, like, come on. Like, I'm a freaking Patricia veteran. Like, come on. I had no choice. Yeah, so the government of Canada recently announced a federal mandate for truckers crossing the border to be vaccinated by 15 January 2022. This led to the so-called Freedom Convoy 2022 protest being organized largely through social media. Various convoys started across Canada on 22 January with the goal of arriving in Ottawa over the weekend of 28 and 29 January. In recent days, organizers of the protest have sought to distance themselves from the more extreme views of a vocal minority. What minority are you talking about? Anyone that I talked to in my networking community, like, they were all calling things to be peaceful, right? And anyone that was not calling for things to be peaceful, they were getting just as attacked and vilified by the people like myself, and myself also, for even trying to make this not peaceful, right? Because there were people that were trying to do the fucking underground friggin' like anti-government friggin' like whatever you want to call it, coup shit, okay, dummies. And yeah, and having to try to manage and taper friggin' emotions and stuff like that, and do things in a more productive way and not a friggin' idiotic way. But anyway. So key judgments: those seeking to undertake legitimate protest and dissent are distinct from actors espousing violent extremism. ITAC judges it possible that Canadian IMVE actors will insinuate themselves within the protest actions in Ottawa over the period of 28 and 29 January. It is possible that opportunistic low-level violence will occur in Ottawa over the weekend based on the likely presence of IMVE adherents and law enforcement. A Canadian extremist group promoting the trucker convoy protest to their supporters. Permanent gridlock zone until freedom restored. I don't even know who that's from. Like, I have it. This is the first time I'm seeing this. It's not from anyone I friggin' know or was talking to at all, or that I'm aware of. Capabilities, just trucks, cargo, and fuel to cause disruption to infrastructure and destruction of property. Yeah. So you've got like the individually motivated violent extremism, you've got the religiously motivated violent extremism, RMVE, IMVE. So even Diagolon, like a fake country by Jeremy McKenzie, was put like as a friggin' a high threat friggin' terrorist group, and it was deemed to be BS. And in fact, the opposite. And in fact, calling out the actual friggin' domestic terrorists, in my possible opinion. Again, like I'll be nice. I gotta be nice. To protest a federal vaccine mandate for truck drivers crossing the Canadian U.S. border. I even emailed like multiple official documents to the ombudsman and CBSA, American Border Services, like you friggin' name it. I even gave that information to the lawyer team, the legal team that's part of the Methacon mass tort against the federal government from years before the pandemic was declared. And even he was not listening to it. And it's like fully friggin' drinking the Kool-Aid. Couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. But I mean, I could. And he was telling me that I should get vaccinated and all that stuff. I'm like, I am not. I am not doing that. So Ben Lobb, CPC. Mr. Speaker, it is a pleasure to be here today. I would like to thank all the police involved, especially, so this is February 17th, 2022. So this was like, again, like at the couple weeks in. Mr. Speaker, it is a pleasure to be here today. I would like to thank all the police involved, especially the Ontario Provincial Police, which is doing a great job across the province. I have 2 points. One is on polling. The Liberal member for Kingston and the Island has mentioned polling many times. I do not think polling has any place in what we are trying to accomplish here in keeping Canadians safe. So we need to get polling in the discussion right off the table. The second problem is the most of the people who are here today have not been briefed by CSIS, the RCMP, or anyone or anybody. A lot of what we are talking about is hyperbole, especially on the other side. Madam Speaker, invoking the Emergency Act was difficult but necessary decision. Our government, and so this was Anjou Dillon, so like you are a criminal too, so be investigated. Possible solutions to our ongoing emergency. We recognize the power of the Emergency Act, which was enshrined into Canadian law in 1988, should only be utilized in very specific and dire circumstances. Yeah, so like the friggin' protests that have been going on throughout Canada, even recent events with what's going on in Israel and Palestine. That was there's been a lot of issues with that too, like actually shutting down highways, evacuation routes, cops giving them friggin' food and donuts. That's the same thing. Food and drinks, coffee, and supporting and enabling, but there's also within these protests that are extremists and are, you know, domestic friggin' terrorists possibly, and supporting and enabling that. And I've even shared videos of actually people within these protests that are not on the right side of friggin' humanity, that are actually threatening our own law enforcement, literally threatening them like their lives, literally on the record, and nothing done about it. And there could be alleged, you know, threats uttered, that's no proof, and people go to jail for that stuff. So Elizabeth May, oh my God, she's Green Party. Again, she's on the wrong side of history too for a lot of things. So like, oh, we're so scared and fearful for our lives. Oh my God, we're just so scared. It was the worst thing that ever happened to Canada. I was afraid for my life. Just like AOC and freaking Nancy Pelosi, like all these freaking fake ass, like, oh my God, I'm so scared. You're scared? Come on, you freaking know that this was freaking not what we're being led to believe. They get the worst people to represent women in politics in every party. It's really frustrating, right? You got like freaking Nancy Pelosi, really, and you've got freaking Hillary Clinton, and you got Nikki Haley for and Sarah Palin, you know, that's America. Kamala Harris, are you friggin' kidding me? She bought her friggin' degrees, like she's supposed to be a lawyer or something like that, and she's a cheater. She's an adulterer. She had to have paid for those degrees. If you've ever heard her actually speak, I don't know. Again, this is just meaning that maybe she's not president material. Based on intellect, just to be clear. And I know a lot of people in the US that would be great at these jobs. Tucker Carlson, I don't know if he's controlled that position or not. I have no idea. Maybe he doesn't even know, right? Like maybe I am. I don't know. I'm definitely not coming at this from a way where I'm knowingly controlled opposition. But I don't know. Maybe the information I shared does help the other side, which I hope it doesn't. But anyway, so Tucker Carlson, he would make a great leader in the US, and so would Anomaly. And I don't know what his real name is. and Jimmy Dore. And yeah, there's so many just off the top of my head, and in Canada as well. There's so many friggin' better people that can do an incredible job within cabinet and can turn this friggin' trajectory around within like a year or two. Sort of a conspiracy thinking and extremism may continue throughout 2022. Seems like a very cogent warning. This is from Justin Ling. All the fear mongering. ITAC reference. Gers Canada spies were right about the Freedom Convoy. Gursky, Canada spies were right about the Freedom Convoy. For your situational awareness, in case you haven't seen it, a new op-ed from Phil Gursky, former IAB analyst, was published in the Ottawa Citizen today. The piece briefly references ITAC's January report and that we CSIS, ITAC did our job. Gursky, Canada spies were right about the Freedom Convoy. CSIS did warn the Trudeau government of the presence of extremist elements within the trucker protest in January. Whether the report on this was read and absorbed is another matter. Yes, I wrote that as a 32-year veteran of both CSC and CSIS, I must admit a little sensitivity when I come across accusations of intelligence failure, which, by the way, it was a huge intelligence failure, hurled at our protectors. Not that I am trying to claim that we are perfect. No one is. It is just that this notion that every bad turn of events originated in lousy intelligence gathering wears a little thin after a while and is usually wrong. Really? Intelligence, you don't even know the shape of the friggin' earth. Like, you don't know any of the friggin' like events of interest and how there's government, like internal government that have actually been part of the friggin' like staging and planning and coordination of these events and executing them. People that are lobbyists and stuff like that. You have failed. You failed. And this guy's name sounds familiar, but what clearly, again, there's people that have been within these organizations for decades and they need to step down. They have entitlement and egos, just like Bill Blair. Okay. They've done nothing good for Canada in all of the service. Useless. Okay. And so step down now. So this is where I was saying with Mark Sargent yesterday, that sometimes I talk myself into getting upset because the stuff is frustrating. And I've given CSIS and people within the same information and no contact back, but they might be looking at my friggin' work and taking friggin' notes now, but not doing it where I can see who they are. Because again, there's people that are cowards. I would meet with you willingly, obviously. I'm trying to help. Clearly, take a look at my friggin' work. And you are not helping. You are doing the opposite of helping. And it is a running joke, right? Because even when I was an infantry officer for 15 friggin' years, okay, we made fun of CSIS and global affairs and again, people with it because they were not qualified. A lot of the people that we met, and I'm sorry to say it, they were just not as qualified or as competent as you would think. And there's people that I know that were even special forces. They got out and they went as part of these organizations, even the field teams within CSIS, and left and went back. With the special forces because it's just they don't listen. All right. They don't, and there's ego involved and stuff like that as well. And even within our own intelligence on deployment, right? A lot of our intelligence briefs and assessments, I think were wrong that we would get, and we'd have to make our own informed decisions on the ground, and and paint a more accurate picture than what these people were putting out there. And so, don't come at me saying they're often wrong. No, they're not. You are though, and you have literally risked multiple people I know their lives because of incorrect data submitted. So when lives are at risk, please, I'm going to call this stuff out, right? If this was stuff that wasn't so serious, I wouldn't be slamming this, right? But CSIS needs to do better. And they had the opportunity with Jeremy McKenzie as well as countless other people to actually, and they did reach out to him, but again, it was more to try to paint him in a certain way and vilify him and make him say things, that might get him in, paint a different picture than what he was actually pushing out there. Which is not Canadian. It's not very Canadian of you. Yeah, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make him read your intelligence. You're goddamn right. Yep. I've said that, actually. That's funny. I've said you can lead a horse to water, but you can't freaking make it. Like I shared so much of this information, and they clueless. And I'm not just like a nobody from the streets. I have over 20 years of experience, and I have top secret government clearance still for another several years, and still part of multiple different Five Eyes communities and other organizations and people within these groups that are the good guys and girls, but mostly guys. But and they're trying to help, but they're getting blocked by literally the people I'm naming: Wayne Eyre, Justin Trudeau, Chrystia Freeland, and peacefully they just need to be investigated finally and fired and jail, and anyone that was involved in this. So this Gursky guy, like anyone that was like lying about the friggin' Freedom Convoy, not looking at the information we were sharing, not even wanting to listen to us on the ground. Like, what were you afraid of? Like, they've got to so many other friggin' protests that they were in support of. The irony, like, of course you're gonna go to a protest that you're in support of. Like, where's the debate of the discussion in that, right? You should be going to the protests where it's against what you're discussing, right? There's a point to these protests. Like, it's just, and he has literally said this on the friggin' record. But if you would have just talked to people, then people would have been fine with him. Like I don't know. Just listen. General threat assessment. Like, they were just painting such a friggin'. But if you are a member of Canadian government and you want more information, like I have been saying, reach out. Munich Security Conference. The 58th Munich Security Conference will be held from 18 to 20 February 2022 in Munich, Germany, due to COVID-19 restrictions. The conference has significantly reduced the number of participants, events, venues, and delegations. However, many heads of states and senior government officials, including 2 Canadian senior government officials, will attend. That's interesting. Where heads of state could attract anti-government or anti-vaccine protests. Sorry, did I say individually motivated? I meant to say ideologically motivated violent extremism, IMVE. You got RMV. There's so many different acronyms. But again, I wasn't working with CSIS. Like their heads of the organization did attend planning conferences that I assisted in coordinating, as well as like heads of emergency response and in other groups. But I never worked with them. So like, I don't know their acronyms. Some of them are very different than the military. I don't know why they do that. And ideologically motivated violent extremism. People didn't want you to they wanted you to stop the friggin' lockdowns. Okay. And the forcing the jab on like 100% of the friggin' population, including children, knowing that there were a lot of friggin' possibly deaths and adverse events reported by the companies themselves as early as February of 2021 that I've released and shared to multiple levels of government that they refuse to look at. And guess what? February 2021, that was a year before the Freedom Convoy. In March of 2022, because of being legally mandated and required, Pfizer released the more updated March 2022 theirs. Again, that's not even including AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, Novavax, Sinovac, Moderna, okay? And underreported, obviously, because of various different reasons. And so they're wondering why people were frustrated and calling for peace and freedom after years of being oppressed by these lunatics, these possible lunatics. Again, like I need to keep my insults to a minimum with it's just, again, it's been years. And even now, finally getting an independent legal team together and being in the courts for years, a great sacrifice to these people's lives, including financial. Only now, like years later, finally getting this overturned, or whatever you want to call it. Vindication. It's not really vindication. It's been hard. Ottawa saw approximately 7,000 people protesting and counter-protesting on Saturday, 5th of February, 2022. There were a number of minor incidents requiring police intervention. They were largely peaceful. Open investigations. And these were not even related to the Freedom Convoy itself. A lot of the things that were being called. And Markham and Chino lied in cabinet and had to retract it after being corrected by another member of parliament because of lying and claiming that the arson and stuff like that they were claiming that were part of the Freedom Convoy movement were by right-wing extremists, and not at all. And he was even still saying that like a friggin' like months later, even, and this is what I mean. Like, they're lying on social media and on the record, like even like under oath, and it being proven that they're doing it, and still like not being ushered out the door peacefully by law enforcement. But right now, again, like you restore a lot more faith when you have a judge that makes the right decision, a couple of years in the making. But then it's even more accountability for government when our own law enforcement holds these people accountable, right? So like if we see Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau get in handcuffs, and Marco Menachino and these people in handcuffs, Wayne Eyre, Patty Hajdu, then again, that would be a huge amount of faith restored in Canadians, because these people are possibly, again, because it needs to be investigated, you're innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, but they need to be investigated. Look at all these friggin', this is just from CSIS, right? RTMP had their own reports that were submitted that you need to get access to information requests to get access to, and then just showing as well, like admitting like the overreach that was implemented on innocent civilians. Inspired other movements. Get a hint. The threat to uniformed personnel remains medium. The increase in violent online rhetoric targeted uniformed personnel is not indicative of increased intent by individually ideologically motivated violent extremist actors and say, like, they're saying actors, like you know what I mean? And there are actors, right? So this is a very correct term to use. And ideologically motivated, I wasn't ideologically motivated. Because this is what I mean. It's such an insult to people that actually were sharing the correct data to these friggin' people. That again, like a scientific data, medical data, government data that was coming out of other friggin' countries like Israel and the UK and Italy that we were just not getting here. What does that have to do with an ideology? And what ideology was I motivated by? Like, you tell me, right? They're making shit up. And they ruined people's lives. Yeah, and a lot of this was a lot of like misleading lies and not showing the escalation of force that was utilized by law enforcement people throughout. So Justin Ling, was like the biggest PSYOPs propaganda spreader, inciter of violence during this period of time. Let's see who he is, because I know the name. I've just oh yes, like I'm very familiar with this guy's freaking stupid face. So here's our friggin' big liar that got people in jail, that are still in jail. Oh, CBC, freelance investigative journalist. Okay, yeah. And you, like, the worst at your job. Terrible. And I've emailed CBC as well. Their tip lines as like clearly terrible at his job, but he probably has a lot of freaking money because of being a sellout to Canadians, calling people violent extremists. Like, what, did Jeremy McKenzie scare you a little bit? He's a little too masculine for you, a little too alpha? Scares you a little bit too much? Can't have that? Soy boy? Can't have that. need to character assassinate people using a platform that is state/government funded by the leftists that are currently in power. Okay, so like not only just got bailout in 2019 of I think it was like over $700 million friggin' dollars, okay, to CTV and their affiliates. But since then, there's been top-ups, hundreds of millions of dollars of top-ups since, and these people are fake media. They're state-run media. Like Justin Trudeau is literally paying these people to push his campaign. This, I don't know how this is still legal, to be perfectly honest with you. So Tamara Leach's lawyer reacts to the Emergency Act. And this is from Rebel News, because again, a lot of times they do get things right, but they are also, I believe, to be heavily funded by the Conservative Party, because they promote very much a that party's agenda. And anyway.
I've gotten to know Tamara Leach over the last year. I really didn't know her. I hadn't met her, even spoken with her before she was arrested. But over the course of the last year, I've gotten to know her fairly well. Gone on tour with her. We published her book, which is a national bestseller, just outstanding. And over the course of the last 6 months or so, I've had the pleasure to meet with and speak to.
Yeah, I totally agree. They have a completely co-opted and stolen the term liberal. Yeah, so they have completely co-opted and stolen the term liberal. Yeah, they have. Because there are people in the Liberal Party that I know personally that are reasonable people. They are very smart people, and they also do not agree with anything that Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau have implemented, or the Speaker of the House. Like, these are people that they just need to speak louder. Their voices need to be louder, and it's starting, because it's just too much. It's just, especially now, like, you don't want to be on the wrong side of history. You know, I could see like a mass exodus of support. Like, not the party, but I see a max like support exodus of Justin Trudeau by the Liberal Party and others, and NDP for sure, in the next coming weeks. I know this video is long, but I just wanted to be thorough with the Emergency Act, because again, because it's like Canadian, it's Canada. I was heavily involved in this as well, and so I do think that it warrants a lot of media awareness.
Lawrence Greenspan, who's a leading criminal lawyer in the city of Ottawa, who has taken what we all thought would be a case for a couple of weeks, is now stretching on the better part of a year. And I'm absolutely delighted to bring him on the show now. A man I truly, God forbid I ever get charged with a crime myself. It may never happen, and it never has. But God forbid if it does. Lawrence, I hope you would take me as a client, because I've been so impressed with your work for Tamara Leach, and thank God you're there for her. And by the way, thanks for taking some time to appear on our live stream. We have about 8,000 people watching concurrently right now. Give me your reaction to this astonishing ruling by the federal court, which caught me by surprise. Maybe you thought it was coming, but boy, I'm surprised. Give me your reaction.
Well, first off, thanks for the very kind words, Ezra. You don't want to need me, but if you ever do, I'm there for you, okay?
Thank you.
This is what we've been saying all along. Those of the various organizations that appeared before the Rouleau Commission were saying just this. This was an unnecessary overreaction to what was certainly in Ottawa a peaceful protest, and what.
A question was asked about reporting on the tyranny is costly. It was just a question, and I mean, it's not it's not breaking my bank account, you know what I mean? But I mean, it's close sometimes, because I'm actually paying for streaming services and for the storage and all that stuff, right? And so it adds up. All the monthly expenses and equipment needed.
Mr. Justice Mosley, who, by the way, is a very experienced federal court judge and has been there for 30 years. He's a former Crown attorney, and he knows of what he speaks. He's found that these temporary, incredibly powerful measures were unconstitutional. And of course, the knee-jerk reaction of the government is, oh yeah, we're going to appeal. But before they appeal, this judgment from it's 190 pages, it's thorough, it's damning, and they come to the conclusion that we've been saying all along, which is that these emergency measures were completely unnecessary. I had a quick skim of the judgment. I don't even think that there was the kind of evidence that we've heard in the Tamara Leach, Chris Barber trial about all of the efforts by the demonstrators to try and reduce the footprint. I mean, those were ongoing pursuant to an agreement, as you know, which was reached with the mayor of Ottawa on February the 12th. And Chris Barber and
Jim Watson, Mayor Jim Watson, who also I contacted and reached out to multiple times, and his office calling and everything, no response, coward. His staff would answer every once in a while, but they would never follow up.
And many others had already taken all kinds of steps trying to reduce the footprint of the impact
or at least
of the demonstrators on the downtown core and the residents of the downtown core. I don't even see any mention of that in the Mosley decision. But when you look at that and you look at what was going on almost from the start of the demonstration, the efforts to try and reduce the footprint, there was absolutely no need for Trudeau to do what he did. And not only that, there was some question about, did he even realize, did anybody actually tell him about what was going on in the streets right in front of Parliament? Because, you know, there was a genuine effort on a daily basis. They had actually already moved 40 of the big rigs, had been moved, and this was part of the agreement that had been struck with the mayor. There was absolutely no need for the Emergencies Act, and every reason not to use these kinds of very powerful measures.
Yeah, we spoke earlier with Keith Wilson, who was a lawyer negotiator for the truckers, who was in daily, in fact, you could even say hourly communication with city officials, police officials, mayor's office, to proactively, you're using the phrase, reduce the footprint. I would say reduce the temperature, reduce the friction. And you said, well, it sounds like Trudeau didn't know about it. A darker interpretation, which I would choose, is that Trudeau absolutely did know about it. And that's why he pulled the trigger on February 14th, because he didn't want this peace deal that the truckers had negotiated with the city coming into effect. I think he realized, oh, I better, if I'm going to use the Emergencies Act, I better do it now, because everything is getting calm and calmer. Remember, the Coots blockade had ended in advance of this.
Right.
So he was running out of justification. I think he pulled the trigger because he wanted to be dramatic, like his father had been during the FLQ crisis some 50 years ago. And I think that, and that was, you know, a lot of people had their doubts about that from a civil liberties point of view, but Trudeau didn't even follow the law. We were just going through the law. It had to have a serious violence in the order of a revolution or a war or a true insurrection. Lawrence, was there any violence whatsoever in Ottawa that you know of during the entire time the convoy was there? I don't know of any violence.
On the contrary, if there had been, the Crown, as you know, has now closed their case in the Litch Barber trial. They've closed their case. You can be sure that if there was any violence, it would have been front and center in the trial. There wasn't any. I mean, really, what the problem was with the demonstrators, is at least in Ottawa, was, and most Canadians will say this, oh yeah, I'm all in favor of the freedom of expression and right to peaceful assembly. They're all in favor of that. But then, unfortunately, most Canadians will say, yeah, but it lasted too long. It was annoying. It was inconvenient. Well, you know, I don't have to tell you that constitutional rights, there's no time limit on them. Yeah. And there's a reason that they're called fundamental freedoms, and they're enshrined in our Constitution. And they shouldn't be messed with because the Prime Minister of the day thinks I'm going to look good if I come out tough like my dad. Well, when Trudeau, the senior, said, you know, in answer to the question, what would you do in response to what's going on? And he turned on his heel and said, just watch me. Canadians across the country were going, wow, that's great. He's a tough guy and he's going to deal with this situation. That was not the scenario in February of 2022. It was a completely different non-violent scenario. There were no cabinet ministers that were being kidnapped or killed.
Yeah.
Far from it. And what this judgment does is it basically says, look, this was crushing a peanut with a sledgehammer when, you know, the peanut was just lying there. There was no violence.
And the thing is, like, I'll reiterate, it was for over 3 friggin' weeks. This beta, okay, not only fled and hid that first weekend, and I don't know why. There were no threats. Like, anyway. He didn't, like, at no point did he even bother or even consider talking to anyone that was representing the Freedom Convoy. Peaceful people known for it for years of decades of service to Canada, knowing like zero criminal records and stuff like that, offering background checks and stuff like that, that he would clearly get. Didn't want anything to do with it, right? He was actually further slamming people and lying during this whole friggin' time. Okay, it's for 3 friggin' weeks. People that knew that it was unconstitutional, knew that it was illegal, knew that it was unethical, knew that they were causing a lot of friggin' harm in Canada. I mean, what do you expect? What would anyone else in the world expect of Canadians that are trying to take back their friggin' freedom? That was peaceful. All they did was stay in location because they were actively getting ignored. Actively getting ignored. And it was important because lives were impacted. This was life or death for a lot of people. You know, people were impacted by tragedies because of policies that they put in place and lies that they were spewing and still are. What do you expect when a tyrannical government that's proven that they were a fascist tyrannical government is finally legally shown to be people that perpetuated these unconstitutional policies and stuff like that? Like we were right. What do you expect? Okay, this wasn't a protest about friggin' ridiculous things. Things that don't really matter. Okay, the freedom is important. Not to sound dramatic.
There's a zeitgeist, that's German for the spirit of the times. A couple of years ago, the zeitgeist in Canada was conformity. I remember when the Democracy Fund got started, there was a tremendous time finding lawyers who were willing to fight against pandemic prosecutions, or I mean, there was the lawyers themselves, and many lawyers are contrarian and like being dissenters, especially in the criminal bar. It was very hard to find lawyers who were willing to take on this juggernaut. And I think that conformity was part of the power of it. Oh, you're not an anti-vaxxer, are you? You're not a conspiracy theorist, are you? And I think the trucker convoy sort of broke that fake unanimity. But in the courts, it still was overwhelmingly, the courts sort of upheld a lot of these rules. I feel that today's ruling sort of grants permission to other judges and lawyers to say, okay, wait a minute, maybe we went too far. Maybe the pendulum swung too far. And here we have a sober-minded judge going through it and saying, yeah, it just wasn't enough to justify it. And some of the mania that was here 2 years ago wasn't justifiable. Like, I think back to how Montreal literally had a curfew from 10 p.m. till 5 a.m., whether you were jabbed or not. And people went along with that. That's a kind of madness of crowds. I feel like this ruling is sort of puncturing that balloon and changes this feeling in the air. And hopefully that'll redound to the benefit of Tamara Leach in your trial. I don't know, maybe that's too feelings-ish of a thing to say, but I feel like the national temperament has just changed today. What do you think?
Well, I think that as long as this ruling gets upheld, and I'm quite confident it will be, the matter is going to be, taken up the line. And I think the irony is that, the very Charter of Rights and Freedoms that Dad brought back to Canada has now been successfully used as a way of undermining the son, Justin, his actions in declaring an emergency. And the irony is certainly not lost. But I mean, of course, the government is going to appeal this and make their arguments. I just don't see how it is that with this kind of ruling, you look back at the Rouleau Commission, you say, how was it that at the end of the day there, it was concluded that this was a national emergency that warranted this kind of emergency powers? And this judgment certainly goes the other way. And I in the time that I've had to review it, it seems to be extremely well reasoned and it's thorough. And my hope is that it'll be properly upheld as it moves up to the Supreme Court of Canada.
Well, listen, it's great to connect with you. It's nice to see you. Before we say goodbye, can you give us a 1-minute update on what happens next in the case against Tamara Lich? I mean, I would have thought that this case, I mean, I don't even think it should have gone to court at all, but I would have thought it would have been over very quickly. It's now stretching well into its second calendar year. What are the next milestones that supporters of Tamara Lich can look forward to in this court case against her?
We expect to receive a decision from the trial judge on March the 7th. That'll deal with the evidentiary matters of whether the evidence of conversations that Chris Barber had can be used against Tamara Lich and vice versa. This is so-called conspiracy type of motion that the Crown has brought. There'll be a decision by the trial judge on that. And then March 13 to 15, we'll be bringing a motion in order to deal with the charges. My hope, and then the judge will need some time to rule on that. So we'll stretch into April, May before there's any decision that needs to be made as to whether or not we're going to call any evidence.
Wow. This thing really is, as they say, the process is the punishment.
Yeah, the process is
I was in court briefly, but we've had a Rebel News reporter in court every single day of the hearing, and our friends at the Democracy.
Yeah, so that was a good one. I know this is like an extended version here. I did say that I emailed Dave Weiss regarding a possible interview or discussion regarding FE. I would be remiss not to talk about Helen Bruce, though, someone that I do know personally. Donald Best, former police detective, journalist, activist, also has his own history of run-ins with the law because of being vocal about things that he should have been vocal about. But
to constant and continuing denial of disclosure by both the prosecutor and the tribunal, as well as the partiality of the tribunal, which has become apparent in a ruling made on November 26, where they denied every expert witness that the defense called.
How is that legal?
So the fix is in. That's my opinion. But I think it's shared by many, many people who have been here observing this trial all along.
He's at Huntmar right now. I can tell because I've been there. Watch the
Robert Krychek, Rebel News, Ottawa, Ontario, day 11 of the tribunal, the disciplinary hearing for Constable Helen Bruce.
He's saying day 11, but this has actually spanned over a couple of years, which is it also, like, again, it's punishment, but like over this, like she was suspended, charged, all of that stuff, and then only like finally awaited trial. Finally got to the first week of the trial hearings in August of last year, and then again November of last year, and then again January of this year, and now it's pushed back again. So like again, this girl who has family, like it's just disgusting. It's just annoying.
For those of you out there that need a reminder, Bruce is being accused of discreditable conduct, and
this is fixed too because the guy that's overseeing like the hearing, he's also someone that like is saying that this doesn't, like, he doesn't want to discuss like the VAERS or any of like the actual information that she was sharing. Like they don't want to discuss that. They're literally friggin' fixing this trial, right? Like not even allowing her to have expert witnesses.
Inquiring about possible links between the vaccine status of mothers and infant deaths. Gru's in her capacity as a police officer working in the sexual assault and child abuse unit.
That's her right there.
Was responsible in part for investigating infant deaths brought to the OPS's attention. The OPS is accusing her of inappropriately inquiring about this possible link, engaging in insubordination in so doing, and also of doing certain queries on the records management system, the RMS database that the OPS uses for information. If she's found guilty, she could be either demoted or terminated. Cynthia, you drove quite a distance to make
and
it
then
down.
There's no opportunity for a pension or anything. Any assistance?
Down here today at the Helen Gru's tribunal. Why
no assistance with any medical fees or anything like that for someone that has dealt with, like, even in the past, like for over 7 years dealing with sexual assault, child abuse cases. Okay, at Hunt Martin, that's not an easy friggin' department to be in, and she has a friggin' family, right? Like, I'm telling you guys, like Helen Gru's, that's another one, should be the friggin' premier, not friggin' cheater, friggin' liar face Doug Ford, you know, like, because he's conservative. I don't like him either. I've been calling out his bullshit now too for years. And so it's like, again, it's like left and right. I'm not on any of the teams here. I'm pro Canada, you know what I mean? And anyone that's actually going to do a better job than these numpties for Canadians, right? And she's risked everything, and she was doing the right thing. There was no friggin' conspiracy theory. She's not a tinfoil hat wearer. Okay, like myself and people like her get called by actual conspiracy theorists, which is the irony, that don't look at data. Oh, I looked at the video. Oh, I saw CTV. Apple TV told me so. Fox told me so. Tucker Carlson just got fired from Fox and was finally able to release a lot of information that he was not allowed to release before. So there, you know, and even, yeah, so it is what it is. I'm going to let this keep playing, but like Helen Gru's, like she should be the fucking deputy prime minister. Like, she blows Chrystia Freeland out of the friggin' water in all aspects. Like, you know, put her in fucking in charge. Like, she has like years of dedicated service that I know this personally.
Tell us why you came here today and why this tribunal is important. What do Canadians need to understand about what's at stake here? What's going on?
I find it very important to be here in person because we have the opportunity to listen to the ongoings, to the proceedings. And I haven't heard very much from legacy media. I know they started the ball rolling at the beginning of the situation, but I haven't heard very much information. And I think that all Canadians need to be aware of the cases that are ongoing. There are several going on right now, and Canadians aren't getting the information they need. So I think coming out in person is one good way of getting the information. I encourage people to come out. It's right close to Ottawa. And also by coming out, you can hear things that you don't hear at all from legacy media.
Exactly.
Today's proceedings saw one witness testify
peacefully.
It's the grandfather of a child that died at 3.5 months of age. This grandfather had dealings with Helen Gru's for several years, also after the death of his grandchild. And he testified to the nature, the character of Helen Gru's conduct with him in her capacity as a police officer with the Ottawa Police Service. He described her in glowing terms, very favorably, and said that she was a very honorable police officer, eager to help others, and that he wished that there were more police officers like her at police departments across the country. He was gracious enough to speak with me at the end of the day's proceedings. I'll let him share with you guys what he said on the stand.
I find that Detective Helen Gru is one of the most professional, kind, caring. She wants to help victims, and she's one of the most professional. She wants to help victims.
So just let's make sure you get the name.
To speak with me at the end of the day's proceedings, I'll let him share with you guys what he said on the stand.
I find that Detective Helen Gru is one of the most professional.
It was a relative of Sid. So sudden infant death syndrome is what they call it.
Kind, caring. She wants to help victims, and she's one of the most professional police officers that I've known.
Me too.
may I even relay one of your other remarks? You even said that you were hoping that police departments across the country would have more police officers like her. Maybe you can share some details as to how she conducted herself with you and what led you to have this impression of her in such a favorable regard.
She just, to sum it up, to make it easy, she's just always eager to help, and she is, we need more police officers like her in our police services across Canada.
During today's proceedings, Chris Renwick, the hearing officer, the de facto judge in this tribunal, denied the defense team's request to have text messages that were sent between two police officers, two colleagues of Helen Gruce's, to be entered into evidence. He refused to have those text messages subpoenaed and then utilized. His argument was that this would somehow be violative of privacy of these officers and would not be beneficial or important or valuable to his final decision in this tribunal. I'm here with Donald Best. Donald's been following this tribunal since day one, very familiar with the details, was here all day during the proceedings. So Donald, why don't you share with our audience what the major takeaways of today are? What's important? What should they know about what happened?
Well, first of all, it really was confirmed again today that this Ottawa Police Tribunal is biased to the core against Detective Gruce. Natural justice has been denied. Now, Detective Gruce has not been allowed to see her own handwritten duty book for January 30th, 2022, one of the dates where she is charged with purportedly doing some wrongdoing. They haven't allowed her to see her own memo book. Unbelievable. The tribunal has refused to allow 5 expert defense witnesses.
January 30th, 2022.
I mean, this is just incredible. And the tribunal had allowed the prosecutors conflict.
Sorry, I keep on cutting them off. They were going after me, Helen Gruce, people like that. Not at all friggin' criminals. And I like for years, and the people that also know her, because I met her through contacts and connections that were high level government, right? Law enforcement and special forces and stuff like that, like all levels. And nothing but good things to say about her, right? Even people that have like a meritorious cross, right? Like literal award winners for actions, overseas, and heroes, and actually like calling her a hero, you know what I mean? Even years ago. And it's mortifying, right? Like there's these people that are actual heroes that have actually risked their friggin' lives, myself included, are deeply impacted by what's going on, right? With our own and people within our own network. It's not a big network in Canada. We don't have a huge population, right? And so again, I'm in Ottawa. Helen's in Ottawa. Most of the people in this network are in Ottawa. And it's and a lot of people I know, people are not speaking up yet because of their positions, but they hate what's going on with Helen. Look what's going on with this girl, man.
Interest. Where the sister-in-law is a prosecution witness, one of the primary prosecution witnesses. We saw that was revealed, had allowed the prosecutors conflict of interest, where the sister-in-law is a prosecution witness, one of the primary prosecution witnesses. And we saw that was revealed back in August, and everybody was aghast.
I was there.
But it turns out that the hearing officer knew about that and gave a written decision allowing,
I get so upset again.
assuming that the prosecutor would not talk to her own sister-in-law about the trial, and that the prosecutor would not be involved in anything to do with the sister-in-law. But lo and behold, when it came time for the defense to cross-examine,
you can't make this up. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not making this up. He's not making this up. Like, at all levels, people were specifically put in positions everywhere, right? Even the low level, what's considered low level cops, and going after them and getting people that are literally biased and allowing people to have like such a friggin' bias like court hearing. Like it's insane. Like you couldn't, like, no bail hearings, like, you know, guilty before like any friggin' like proof to be shared, like oh my God, like you would name it. It's just, I just can't believe it. I mean, I can obviously, but like, this is what I mean. Like, Canada has literally fallen already. Like, we need these people to be supported right now. Oh my God, peacefully.
Sister-in-law, the prosecutor, Vanessa Stewart, stood up and weaponized objection to prevent the defense from mounting a proper cross-examination. And that continued today. It's continued every day of the hearing. Now, here's a paragraph, a few words from a court document filed by the defense on November 27th, 2023. And this, of course, was disallowed, but what it says is, the disciplinary proceedings against the applicant, Detective Gruss, concerning one count of discreditable conduct have been riddled with procedural unfairness towards the applicant from the outset. The applicant has been subjected to constant and continuing denial of disclosure by both the prosecutor and the tribunal, as well as the partiality of the tribunal, which has become apparent in a ruling made on November 26, where they denied every expert witness that the defense called. So the fix is in. That's my opinion. But I think it's shared by many, many people who have been here observing this trial.
Yep. Okay, so I think I'm at 18,000 hours in now. And so on that note, I will leave it at that, just with what's going on with Canada, a lot of updates. And so if you're just tuning in or just having the last hour, I did talk about a lot more things at the start of my video. So just restart if you want to get that information. I talked about Tucker Carlson as well, and his visit to Canada to liberate Canada. Oh my God, people from all over the freaking world. Russell Brand too. I talked about, like, people from all over the world are literally looking at Canada like WTF. And so myself and people like me have been trying to make it better for a few years, and maybe this is the year that happens. And so I will leave it at that, and I hope that everyone has a wonderful day.